All right, welcome guys to another AVA Fusion Lifecycle. Today we're going to be focusing on NPI Workspace specifically, talking to you guys a little bit about what the value that the NPI Workspace brings to your guys' projects, specifically visibility, accountability, and ownership over those projects in new product introduction. Here at KETIV, we believe in the sharing of knowledge. And we believe that this NPI workspace is something that's worth sharing, but we really would love and appreciate your feedback on that, letting us know that this is something that you actually do care about, something that you would like to see again, or even giving us suggestions on what you would like to see in the future. So that being said, this next couple of months, we're going to be trying something a little bit different. We are going to give you a general overview of the NPI workspace and why it's valuable and how you can be using it. But then the next couple months, we're going to do a deeper dive, more on the administrator level, helping you to understand how it works behind the scenes and how you can eventually build your own workspace, which is really cool. Nathan and our other technical expert, James, is going to be focusing on providing that content for you. So that being said, we would love and appreciate your feedback as well on that. So in the YouTube comments, Facebook comments, please let us know that's something that's going to be valuable to you, that you'd actually care about. And lastly, you can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook, and you can also sign up to the webinar live in the info section or in the comments. Jessica, the person who helps us out so much behind the scenes, is going to be linking that in the comments section for YouTube and Facebook. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Nathan, and we'll get started.
All right, thank you, Tony. I'd like to recognize James is also on the call with us today. He'll be manning if you guys have any questions. He'll be answering those online for you. And just as Tony said, we have a real exciting presentation. We're going to today focus on what NPI is and how it's set up out of the box. So from an agenda perspective, first want to make it clear, what we expect to cover on the call, what we want you to understand by the time we're done, then give an overview of what the NPI process is, how we view that inside of Fusion Lifecycle. Then we'll have a demonstration, and then at the very end, we'll open up the lines for any questions or answers. So today we're going to be looking at NPI in the context of this exhaust air blower that you see on the screen. I'm going to first introduce the out-of-the-box NPI process with Fusion Lifecycle. Now, I say that with a little bit of a caveat. Depending on when your Fusion Lifecycle tenant was provisioned, so if you've already had it for a few years, chances are it's not going to look like what I showed today. However, if you have a new tenant that's been provisioned within the last 2 or 3 months, it will be exactly what I showed today. And what's exciting is, as Tony mentioned earlier, over the next couple of months, we're going to go behind the scenes of what the NPI workspace looks like. So if it doesn't look like this out of the box, you're going to understand how you can get it to look this way as we go through this series. Now, I want to also explain how the different workspaces come together for NPI to work inside of Fusion Lifecycle. There are products involved. That is the actual workspace that holds the NPI information. But we also interface with items and bombs. We interface with tasks. And we also have task templates, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have a demonstration of the overall process. So when we think of new product introduction from the perspective of Fusion Lifecycle, there are a few processes that it manages out of the box. First, we have project or product-related metadata. So information like descriptions, sizes, shapes, who's approving it, who's in charge of it, pictures. There's a lot of metadata typically that we want to manage. Then we have typically project or product-related documents. So we might have some marketing specification documents. We might have some engineering specification documents. We might have validation testing report results. A lot of different types of information that goes into creating a new product or a new project. And again, we want somewhere to manage all of that information. Then we also, it maps out the steps of what your NPI process looks like. So out of the box, we have a concept phase, we have a requirements definition phase, we have a development phase. Yours might vary a little bit of that, but overall, it's a pretty robust methodology that's very widely used. And then finally, it helps to give accountability for tasks and deliverables. Through each stage that you go through this NPI process, there are different deliverables and there are different tasks that need to be done. And you can give accountability and you can make it very clear who is responsible and what date they need to have items done by having all of that information in the NPI workspace inside of Fusion Lifecycle. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it is Stagegate process. We have 7 total stages that come configured out of the box. There's concept. Concept goes into requirements definition, which then goes into the development phase, the validation testing phase, a pilot run, production, and then obsolete. You can see this is a very linear process. You can't move from one stage to the next until everything's completed. There are no parallel paths. You can basically just go forward or backwards depending if the work is getting approved or not. And of course, anytime during the development phase, if for some reason a product or a project gets canceled, then you can go ahead and cancel that up until you get to production. Now, to help understand the tasks and the deliverables, so imagine as we're going through these different process stage gates, when we're in the concept phase, for example, we're probably going to have to gather some type of customer requirements and maybe some type of industrial design. We want to think, what might our solution to these problems look like? Then you move to the requirements definition phase, and then you might get a little bit more detailed into what the industrial design looks like, what your product actually looks like. And then you might want to get into some more marketing requirements. Are we going after a high-end market? Are we going after a low-end market? You want to have that type of information. So as we go through each of these phases or these stages, we're going to have different tasks that have to be done. And we're potentially going to have different deliverables that need to get completed. So with NPI, we have this concept of what we call a task template. And if I release 5 new products a year, just as an example, I'm going to go through the exact same process every time I develop a new product. So with a task template, we can say in the concept phase, we always have industrial design reviews and customer requirements. In the development phase, we always have electrical design, some simulation, and some packaging design reviews that we do. So what you can do is you can actually give the workflow state name, what the task is, and how long it typically takes to complete that task. And this will make a little bit more sense when I get into the demonstration portion of the presentation. But I just wanted to point out that this is where you're templatizing. Now, I might create 5 different types of projects or products, or maybe I'm project-based and we have 3 lines of business, and each line of business has a different set of tasks that they have to complete. If that's the case, I can create as many different task templates as needed. And then when I create a brand new product or brand new project, I can go ahead and I can select which template I want to use based on the process I need to follow. So again, very flexible, very helpful to automatically define what needs to be done during each phase of your project. So here's the example on the screen. You can see when I'm creating a new product or new project, I can actually pick which task template I'm pulling from, and then it's automatically going to pull all of these different tasks as I go through my project. Now, to understand how it works, when I create a new product or a new project, initially we go into this concept phase. When I'm in this concept phase, if you remember, there were some customer requirements and an industrial design review were tasks that always have to be done during the concept phase. So in my product or project, it's automatically going to create these tasks, and I can monitor the progress as they get through to completion. And by the way, each of these tasks has its own task database and has its own owner. So this task would have a different owner, a different reviewer than this task right here. And every single task in the whole entire project can have different owners and can have different people that have to review it. So a very powerful way, once again, to give accountability. You can see exactly who needs to get work done. You can see when they're done. It's all right here inside of the application. Now, let's suppose we move from the concept phase to the requirements definition phase. In that case, now when we get to requirements definition, it checks the task template and it says, oh, you now also need to do marketing requirements and a more detailed industrial design review. So it automatically creates those tasks. And as we continue through this process, any task that we define will continue to be created. And so that way, instead of us having to do that every single time we create a new product or project, creating all of these tasks manually, we can automate that and have it done for us. Now, when we talk about task management itself, inside of Fusion Lifecycle, we have a couple of different views. We first have a task view, and this lists all of the different tasks that have to get done, and it shows their current status, when they should be started, when we expect them to be completed, how long we expect each one of them to take. And we can also look at a Gantt view. So this Gantt view will basically take each of these individually and show the start and the end dates so you can see how they stack up together. Now, this isn't necessarily like a Microsoft project. So, these don't move automatically when we change the dates, as far as being able to create relationships between the tasks. And they only measure in days. We don't go to hours. We don't go down to minutes. But when you think of it from an overall product or project perspective, this information is very useful to have just so that we know when deadlines are coming up. We know who's in charge of making sure that the work gets done for those deadlines, and everyone can be held accountable for their part in the product development process. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now and switch over to Fusion Lifecycle. And you can see right here, I have my homepage for the demo tenant that we're going to be using for today. Now, depending on when you guys have created your Fusion Lifecycle tenant, that may look a little bit different. Notice that I'm also using the new modern user interface. So things might look a little bit different than yours. But again, we'll be going over the next few weeks how you can make these look a little bit, how you can have your tenants look more and more the same as the tenants that we're doing the demonstrations from. So here we're going to go to the workspaces, and to access the NPI workspace, you go to product development, and there's a products workspace. So we go ahead and we click on that, and you can see right here, right now, we only have one product that we have inside of my tenant that's active. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new one so that we can see the process, from the beginning, and we can see how it works in concept. So here we're going to go ahead and say this is a blower. It's for exhaust. This is a 24-inch propeller. It's skid mounted, and it's a 42-inch wide skid. So we go ahead and we can put a description. Now here is where we pick the task template. And again, this is really important to make sure that the tasks get created when they should be created and the right tasks get generated. So I'm going to go ahead and click Industrial Machinery and Products. But before I go on, just so you understand what it's doing, I want to come over here. And if you come down to Reference, you'll see this Project Task Template Workspace. I'm going to right click and open this up in a new link. In a new tab. And this workspace is going to come up here. And you'll notice that when it comes up, we're having a little internet issue here. But when this comes up, you'll see that we have one of the items that we have is this industrial machinery template that we're looking at right here. So give it just a second to come in. Here we go. And you can see here, we have the medical device, industrial machine, consumer, high tech, and automotive. Notice that if I click right here, those exact same options are available. So here I'm picking which template that I want. And when I click on the individual template that I want to pull from, if I come to the task template section, notice that here is where, as an administrator, you could go in and you could define all of the different tasks that you want to be created. You can pick the start date, the duration, the workflow state that it should be developed, where it's applicable. You can even predefine owners and reviewers if you want as well, which we have chosen not to, along with the description and the task database. So there's a lot of information here that controls the different tasks that are going to be created. So now let's go ahead and let's choose an image file. I'm just going to choose the image of my blower right here. We'll go ahead and we'll give this a product class. Now, if you haven't used product classification, this is a very good way if there's different types of systems that you design or that you develop, and each one has a different set of properties that you want to manage. Classification is a great way to do that. And here I'm just going to put blower, 24-inch propeller, skid mounted. That will be our marketing name. And then, of course, we need to come down here. We need to pick the approvers for each one of the stages that we go through. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick myself as the approver for all these different phases. That way I can quickly move from one phase to the next. And then we're going to just come in here. We're going to pick a product family, an industry, and now I'm going to click Save. Now notice at this time I didn't create any tasks. All I did was filled out this information that you see right here. But as soon as I click Save, it's now going to go ahead and create a new product that follows this NPI process. And if I come over to the Tasks and the Deliverables tab, instead of being empty, it now knows that we need to do customer requirements and we need to conduct an industrial design review. Now notice right here, it shows that this is open. It shows that it's 0% complete. So if I right click this and open up the task in a new tab, then I'll show you, we'll walk through how this works right here. So notice that this is its own task. It has its own approval workflow. We can put attachments here if it makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click this to assigned. And then notice that it won't let me move it over to complete because I'm not listed as a reviewer or an owner. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this task real quick. Make myself the owner. Also make myself the reviewer. And now when we go back to complete this task, now it's complete. And when it's complete, we're going to go back to the project, and we're going to see how that gets updated. Now, I did want to point out before we go back to the project, though, again, notice that this shows who the owner is, who the reviewers are. So again, every single one of these individual tasks are going to have that information available so that it helps you if you're managing a project from a high level, you know exactly what's being worked on and what's not being worked on. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to refresh this page. And we'll give it just a second. And when this is done getting refreshed, notice that now it's 100% complete. And so we have the status of that task getting reflected up inside of our project or our product workspace. Now, if you want to see the Gantt view, just want to point out, you can click right here, and that will show half Gantt view, half task view. And then, or you can choose also to see the full Gantt view as well. So you have some options on how you want this display to look right here. Now let's go ahead and go to our approval workflow tab. And when we go over here, this looks a little busy here, but you can see we're in the concept phase. And let's suppose that now we're done with both of these tasks. Just a note, out of the box, we can set this up so that you're not able to move to the next phase in the process until all of these are complete. For today's demonstration,
I disabled that because I didn't want to have to go through all these tasks, complete them to move to the next phase. But I just wanted to point out that for a solution that you guys have out in the field, that type of functionality will be there and is available if you want. So notice that we just have the 2 tasks right now. Those were the 2 tasks, if you remember, that were for the concept phase, which was the industrial design review and the customer requirements. When we move to the requirements definition, notice that it should create another industrial design review phase, which we can see detailed right here. And we also need the marketing requirements task. We need those 2 to be created in the next phase. So let's see what happens when we move now to the requirements definition phase. So we'll give that just a minute to move over. There you can see it has now moved over. So now when I go back to my tasks and my deliverables tab, notice that it has now added the 2 additional tasks. And so you can see as we go on and it builds this out, it continues to build it out inside of our Gantt chart. So you can see as it goes on and on, we're going to continue to make this list longer and longer and longer with the tasks that are relevant based on where you are at in the project. So that's enough, I think, with tasks. I do want to show one thing real quick, just to understand how this works right here. Notice that for the requirements definition, for the marketing requirements, it says start 38 and it has a duration of 2. So what that means is for the marketing requirements, make the start day 38 days from today's date. So this was the day that we created it. So it's going to create the start date out 38 days, and it's going to give me a duration of 2 days. So that's basically how that works inside of the template. So you can make sure that the dates get set properly when you set that up. Now, another thing that we can manage from the workspace is if I go to the bill of materials tab, we want to make sure that we are up to date with any changes in the bill of material that are going on. So I'm going to go ahead and add real quick. Trying to remember the name of it. There it is right here. This is my assembly of my items and bombs workspace. And what I can do is I can actually relate that directly to this product or this project right here. So now I have all of my bill of material information readily available directly from the project. I don't have to go into a separate workspace in order to see that information. Let me just save that. And as soon as it's saved, you'll see all of the bill of material information come in. Notice that this is indented, so I can go through and I can see all of these different components that are part of my project. And as these get changed, I can see, what lifecycle they're in. You can see these are pre-release because obviously we're developing this right now. It's not a released product. But notice that we're also using hardware and other components that are released because those are components that we're not going to change from one product to another. So all that information's here. It's very accessible and easy for us to view and easy for us to see. Now, the last part that I want to get into is I want to talk a little bit about the attachments. So over on the attachments sheet, there are many different types of files that we can upload into our project. So I'm going to, here's a DWF file, and that's kind of like a PDF for CAD that uses an Autodesk proprietary format. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click an Excel spreadsheet. Didn't need to copy that. And a sample PDF file. So I'm going to go ahead and open all of those. And we'll just call this our, let's see, this is our DWF. So we'll call it a blower CAD file preview. We can give this a description of our BOM information spreadsheet. Then if we scroll down a little bit here, we can just say this is a spec PDF file of maybe a motor or something. So now when I click upload, it's going to bring all of those documents So again, think about if you're doing a project or you're designing a new product, there's all this information. And today, most people will carry that information locally on their different hard drives. And so if you have to find information, oftentimes it's a pain because you have to know who to ask. You have to hope that they're not out of the office. You have to hope that they're available, that they have the information right there. It's so much easier if all of that information is centrally located. And the NPI process gives you that area where all of this can be located, it can be versioned. So as updates are made, you can keep updating this to all of the latest versions as they are made. Now, notice I can also click on these, and this will take just a minute, but I can click on these files, and embedded inside of Fusion Lifecycle, we have these viewers. And there are a lot of different file formats that the viewers can see natively, but it, again, makes it so that anyone who wants to see information, even if they don't have native applications on their machines, they can come in and they can get a lot of information very quickly. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, you know, models maybe worth 1,000,000 words, right? Who knows? But the point is that all of this information makes it a lot easier to understand. So notice that in here, I can do things like I can explode this, and I can get an idea of what this looks like and how all of the different components go together. If I want, I can start taking, you know, measurements from one side to the next. I can see that it's about 42 inches. We can also, give me a second here. We can also come in and we can do things like section views. So if you want to know, you know, hey, what does the fan look like that we're using here? Notice that we can twist that around. We have easy to use glyphs that show how you can pull it back and forth. So now you can see the cross section of that fan as we go back and forth. So there are a lot of different ways that users can come in and they can interrogate the model themselves. They can even look at the browser and see all of the different components that make up the part in here. It's really cool. Now, let's go ahead and go back. Another example is we'll just open up this PDF file. And again, inside of this viewer, we can load it up and all of the specification information that maybe engineering needs, maybe marketing needs, all of that can be readily available right here. And even the Excel spreadsheet, if I clicked on that, I would get a preview of what that Excel spreadsheet looked like in here as well. So it just gives you a nice location to keep all of the documents that are related to your project or your product development. And it makes it easy for people to view it. And they could even download it and make changes and then upload new versions if they want, all the while maintaining version history. So all of that, those capabilities are built into to Fusion Lifecycle. So that concludes the presentation that we had today. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that the way we have the out-of-the-box new product introduction process set up, it's really designed to make it easy to make people accountable for the different parts of the process that they play in. It's designed to help others know when a project's going to be completed, stated deadlines, have all the information centralized, and to be able to have a process that's well thought out, well documented, and you know who approved every part of the design and when it was approved. So it gives you a lot of great traceability. We thank all of you for attending. And like we said, keep an eye out for our upcoming presentations where we're going to peel the layers back. We're going to see how the task template workspace is created, how it works behind the scenes. And we're going to start breaking it down over the next couple of sessions that we have in the upcoming months. So please join us for those upcoming webcasts. And we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Take care, guys. See you next time.